Hi friends, my name is Kristen and today we're going to talk about Mary Rambo and what exactly she means not only in the novel Invisible Man, but to the titular character. She's not like any of the other women characters so far. This is not a woman-centric book, and that's shown pretty early on, as we'll see, but I would argue she is one of the most important characters to Invisible Man and his human side in this novel. So far, we haven't met too many very important women. We've seen the woman at the Battle Royal, who is a trophy and item. She is just as much of a victim of this situation as Invisible Man, being basically molested by the white drunk patrons. We have Norton's unnamed daughter, who is really just a prop for Norton to put all of his hopes and dreams onto and use her as an excuse for everything he does in life. We have Maddie, Lou, and Kate, True Blood's daughter and wife. We do not know them directly. We only know them through True Blood's tale, and we know he loves them, but he does still rape Maddie Lou and deeply hurts his wife Kate through this. We have the old woman being evicted. That spurs Invisible Man into making his speech and causing action. She is a religious woman who makes him think of his own mother and Mary. And then we also have some minor trivial women, various secretaries, bartenders, bystanders. My interpretation is Invisible Man sees them as silly or useless. I think this is highlighted especially with Norton's secretary, when after his first meeting with Norton before going to chapel, she says, "Look like you have, old bucket head kind of mad," acknowledging how upsetting the meeting was, and then immediately brushing it off by asking, "Will you take a message to my boyfriend for me?" Not really caring about Invisible Man as a person at all or whatever just happens to him. And so far in the novel, women themselves haven't been especially important. I mean, we know Invisible Man likes women. He liked the woman at the Battle Royal, but he doesn't want a girlfriend, just like how he doesn't want friends. He's usually pleasant enough to certain women, like the white men's secretaries, but he does tend to get annoyed when it comes to women of his own race, like the woman inside the Golden Day, or some of the various hecklers on the street, like the woman mad at him for throwing trash in her trash can. This does bring us to Mary, who is extremely important. Alright, so some details about her that we know for sure. She is described as a big, dark woman who Invisible Man meets while he's vulnerable. This is super important because during his electric shock treatments, he was asked, "Who was your mother?" And he genuinely could not remember her name, and it was very upsetting to him. So you could argue this whole experience of him being rebirthed through the wires and the shock treatment is him being rebirthed to this new mother, who largeness in characters is usually attributed to their warmth, and I do find it interesting she's compared as being dark. This novel does have some colorist undertones. I know it strikes me because when compared to someone like Bledsoe's wife, who was creamy complected, maybe this is showing, since she's darker, she's more authentic, she's more of an ally, she's basically says what she means when it comes to the black community, although that could be argued. She plays the lottery, but she never wins. She's a very nice woman. She's a widow who takes in boarders. We know through her interactions with Invisible Man she feeds them at least dinner and breakfast every day, and she changes their sheets. And I know she's not too happy with the furnace and the racket. When winter hits, she makes sure to heat up some nice hot water for Invisible Man, so she's very attentive to them. She describes herself as, "I'm in New York, but New York ain't in me. Understand what I mean? Don't get corrupted." And though New York is this hard, scary place, she remains this nice, loving character who found this stranger on the street and invited him into her home. She takes care of her neighbors. That's something she's known for. She says, everybody knows me around this part of Harlem. She even asks the young boy who is helping to get Invisible Man into her house when he faints the first time they meet, and he responds, sure, I'm Jenny Jackson's boy. You know I know you, Miss Mary, showing that she does have this good reputation around as being someone who takes care of people and takes care of Harlem. And I see her personality beyond some of these facts as being split into 3 important parts. They're always interconnected, and they do make up the bulk of her interactions with Invisible Man. The first and the most important is Mary as the mother. I see her as being compared to Mary, the mother of Jesus. As we said, Invisible Man meets her right as he comes out of electric shock treatment, symbolic of his rebirth. And the first thing she does is ask, boy, is you all right? What's wrong? Doesn't matter to her that this is a stranger. She helps him into her house, lets him sleep, and feeds him for a few days, telling him, you take it easy. I'll take care of you like I done a heap of others. She does learn that Invisible Man just came out of the hospital, so she knows he really needs some help, even though he doesn't want to make trouble for her. But she says that you're trouble to somebody, meaning everyone will have to take care of you if she wants it to be her. Her name, Mary, does mean beloved, and is very symbolic of Mary, the Mother of God. And when Invisible Man recovers, he does try to go back to Men's house, but feels very alone. It just doesn't sit right with him, so he decides to move in with Mary after she gives him the offer. You ever decide you want a room somewhere behind Men's house, try me. Which leads to her next part, which she is a motivator. She is always telling Invisible Man that it's you young folks what's going to make the changes. Even though Invisible Man has a period of quietness where he doesn't really have friends or work, Mary does interrupt him with her reminders that he's going to be great. He's going to be a credit to the race. He has a great future ahead. I.M. does not consider Mary his friend. She's a stable but familiar force. She mostly just is there to motivate her. She makes sure he eats and comes home safely. But even though he does not have a job, she does not let him worry about the rent or her house finances. In fact, when he does get the money from Brother Jack, he almost has to force her into taking the $100 bill. He has to lie and say he won it in the lottery, and she really doesn't want to take it, but when she does, she promises to set some aside for him if he ever has hard times again, because she understands everybody worth his salt has his hard times. When you get to be somebody, you'll see these very same hard times helped you a heap. All right. And I think it's important to note back into Mary, the Mother of Jesus, in chapter 13, as he walks in winter, one of the background decorations he describes, I saw 2 brashly painted plaster images of Mary and Jesus. It's just a random part of Harlem. It's not necessarily important to the story, but I do think it's very interesting that not long after meeting Mary, Ellison did describe a painting of Mary and Jesus, perhaps as Invisible Man being the savior and her being the mother. Because like I said, even though she is the motivator, she is still very much the mother. And this also ties into her next part of her personality, where she is also kind of an annoyance to Invisible Man. She always reminds him he's expected to be somebody. Mary reminded me constantly that something was expected of me. He begins to kind of resent that, especially as time goes on and he does not find a job or any opportunities. It kind of puts the pressure on him that he does not like. We never see her interact with other house members, so it's unknown if she treats them the same way or if she has a specific liking to Invisible Man. He is also very upset with her when he realizes in his bedroom is a Sambo bank, which is, if you see the picture, it's a black caricature of minstrel shows made into an object someone could purchase. He sees it as a sign of his oppression. He doesn't understand why Mary would have it. He describes the feeling of seeing it, the hate charging within me. Whatever that allowed Mary to keep such a self-mocking image around, he just doesn't understand. Which I think in some level, the two do not communicate very well, at least what we see. Right after this, he can't bring himself to tell Mary he's leaving. He hides the bank instead of admitting it, and even Mary herself tells him that she doesn't really want to hear about his money troubles. And even while they're talking, she's distracted, making food and cleaning. And she does mean a lot to Invisible Man. Even though he gets annoyed with her pressure, it does seem very motherly, and his annoyance at her seems like a child. She always reassures him, you'll get something by and by. And I think it's important that Brother Jack does see Mary as a threat because of how close Invisible Man is to her, which could endanger the oppression. And honestly, it's the thought of her that comforts him after he accidentally started the riot about the old evicted couple. I couldn't image Mary as being helpless as the old woman at the eviction, and by the time I reached the apartment, I begun to lose my depression. He only joins the Brotherhood because of Mary. It's his only real job prospect, and when he gets home that night and sees that there's cabbage stew, he realizes it's a sign of hard times, saying, cabbage was always a depressing reminder of the leaner years of my childhood. And he just couldn't bear to see her evicted, because he says, I don't know how much money I owe her, and knows that him not paying rent is probably causing a strain to her, especially as he listens to her singing the troubled song Blackwater Blues. He is forced to leave her home when he joins the Brotherhood. What he wants to do is leave without talking to her, just leaving the money and going because he doesn't want to disappoint her. He doesn't want to answer any of her questions because she does tend to ask a lot of questions. He feels guilty because of all she's done to her. He feels guilty because he broke her bank. He does give her the $100, even accounting for the coins in the bank, but he does lie about where the money comes from, as stated. He says that he won it in the lotto, which does kind of start in a fun conversation where she says, I known you as a lucky one, because she always plays the lotto and has never won. She's a little worried because society will give her trouble over having a $100 bill, questioning her whole life and where she got it, but she does eventually take it, even if she does acknowledge that she wants to save it for him. And I think this whole thing is important because Invisible Man has always seemed like a force, like a symbol, but with Mary, we see him as a person. He becomes a child again, maybe even a lost teenager who needs some help. He has someone who he loves and cares about instead of himself or some blanket thought like the founder. And I think this helps him and will help him in the coming times with the Brotherhood. But I do think it's poignant that the last interaction we see involves him helping her clean out cockroaches. As she says, some folks live in filth. I don't know, I feel like this is possibly foreshadowing, maybe saying that leaving her house he'll become a cockroach, because the Brotherhood wants him to become this whole different person than what the person Mary wants him to be, even though he feels like he has to join to become this great person she expects. But maybe I'll be proven wrong, and that's not where this story is going. There are a few questions to consider with Mary that I have, just to think about. I guess, is Ellison's portrayal of other women misogynistic, or is it just a symptom of the times? Even though Mary has this important role, is it fair for the other woman in the story to be treated as props, like the woman at the Battle Royale, or plot devices like Maddie Lou and Kate? And does Invisible Man truly love Mary, or does he just really need her right now in the absence of his own mother? I personally think it's a bit of both. Like I said, he does get some of this humanity back, but besides just commenting on how she motivates him and things, we don't really see them interact too much. Also, is Mary's Sambo Bank a sign of her passivity towards the social rights movement? Is it hypocritical of her to own and use this bank while placing such high racial expectations on Invisible Man? And then the last question, do you think you could have told Mary to her face you were suddenly moving out after all she had done? Considering this, is it really out of character for Invisible Man to leave without saying a word? I know a lot of these I have my own thoughts on, but I would be interested to hear what you have to say. All right. Thank you. Bye.